Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first Resilio and OSNexus webinar. Today, we'll be diving into our product integration and how to use QuantaStor and Resilio together. Before we get started, I'd like to point out the question box on the bottom part of the screen near the middle there. You can submit questions during the presentation, and we'll be doing a Q&A at the end. So now I'd like to introduce our speakers. From OSNexus, we have founder and CEO Steve Umbihocker, and from Resilio, we have Josh Sargent, VP of Partnerships. After some product overviews and use cases, you'll see a live demo of Resilio Connect running native on OSNexus QuantaStor, and then we will finish with a Q&A session with Steve and Josh answering your questions that you have during the presentation. So without further ado, let's get started, and I'll pass it off to Steve and Josh.
Thanks, Lauren. I'm Josh from Resilio, and just wanted to start out with a quick overview of who Resilio is and what we do. And we are really focused on doing one thing and doing it really well, and that's syncing files and folders. We focus just on that, and we think there's a lot of value that can be had in doing that well and doing it better than other solutions out there. We can really add value for all types of situations, all types of use cases, and we'll talk about a few of those today. But Resilio is used by a lot of different customers for a lot of different reasons. We'll talk about some of those key use cases in collaboration with OSNexus, but really we help customers of all sizes, from very small organizations with just a few people all the way up to really large Fortune 100 companies doing things like server synchronization or remote work or cloud synchronization. And I'll tell you a little bit more about those. And Stephen, if you can give us an overview of OSNexus.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. At OSNexus, we're a software-defined storage manufacturer, and we've got some customers in common with Resilio, and that really drove bringing the two products together. And so a little bit about OSNexus. We make QuantaStor, and the software is our software-defined storage platform. It bare metal installs on standard servers to turn them into storage appliances so that you can deliver file, block, and object storage using commodity hardware. And it helps you reduce the high cost of proprietary systems and gives you that flexibility to use a myriad of different vendors. And that can be really helpful as well nowadays with all the kind of supply chain challenges that we've been hitting during the pandemic. Go ahead and jump to the next. This is how you can start to expand using QuantaStor, where you can use different servers of different brands, and this is showing a lot of Supermicro equipment, but you can use a mix of scale up and scale out in the architecture to set up NAS as scale up or scale out. And yeah, go ahead and what we're showing here is that the UI is accessible on all the different nodes. So when you're setting up these different systems and managing them, you get to manage them as one across all your data centers. So whether or not you've got systems in multiple data centers or they're all in one, you can go and manage it as one system and centrally provision things. And what we've done is a lot of work with Resilio to go and integrate Resilio into the product so that we can start doing bidirectional replication between QuantaStor systems using the Resilio technology, and also from QuantaStor systems out to the edge. So being able to go to the cloud, being able to go to laptops and phones even. So this is just showing how each of the different clusters within the storage grid can be delivering file, block, or object storage. And you can just expand the grid by either adding more storage to existing clusters or adding systems in different locations, and then set up policies on how you want to control the flow of your data. So this really gets into that flow of the data. How do you set up replication using QuantaStor today, and what are the benefits of really adding Resilio into that? So QuantaStor has a powerful remote replication system in it that will let you block level increment file and block storage for setting up a DR site. So This is where you're replicating your iSCSI LUNs and your network shares and things that you're using for VMware or databases to another site. And the block level incremental nature of it is that it's going to be able to detect even small changes like 4K change to a big file and only send the changes. We also have some ability to do some backup to the cloud. But where this gets really interesting when you combine QuantaStor and Resilio together is how it just like solves some huge problems for organizations that are collaborating across sites. So now you can take your QuantaStor grid of NAS systems that are in different data centers and now set up bidirectional synchronization of that data and bidirectionally sync from the laptops to the NAS systems directly. And we do that by containerizing the Resilio Connect agent and putting it directly into the QuantaStor system. So the QuantaStor systems are highly available. When we do failover, that agent is moving with the pool of storage, so there's zero downtime. And so that gives you this highly available NAS with Resilio built in. And then you get the other benefits of being able to set up like snapshot schedules to automatically protect the content and be able to have users be able to roll back to get previous versions and all the other protections that come with being able to use double and triple parity RAID. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. This being able to introduce enterprise NAS into the mix here with QuantaStor takes and really brings a lot more value to some of the Resilio workloads we've seen for some of our customers.
Excellent. Thanks, Stephen. So, just a few examples of use cases that, might be interesting to users of Resilio and OSNexus QuantaStor. I mentioned, and Stephen mentioned, synchronization just between NAS devices, right? Between locations or just between separate systems for high availability purposes or disaster recovery purposes. This is a very common use case for us. And it's not, by the way, it's not just about syncing data between similar systems, but really any types of systems. Remote work, we'll talk a little bit about, and syncing to the cloud. These are all common use cases. Customers that are collecting data from a bunch of edge or Internet of Things devices, sensors out in the field. There's really your sort of imagination is the limit here. Anywhere you need to sync data, we can do it. But storage and server synchronization is really a core use case. Like I said, syncing between QuantaStor NAS devices or Windows or Linux servers or Macs, whatever. Keeping servers in sync, whether for disaster recovery or high availability, is common among most customers, where you've got a ton of data. And most storage subsystems have the ability to, like Stephen said, take point in time sort of snapshots and synchronize in one direction for disaster recovery purposes, right? Data protection. But when you have cases where you might have users in multiple offices and they really need to collaborate on these files, people making changes in each location on each storage device, and you want those changes to be sort of synchronized back and forth so that everybody can collaborate. And we see that more and more, especially in certain industries. And this is really what Resilio is sort of adding to the QuantaStor architecture. And this ability to collaborate and do bidirectional or omnidirectional synchronization is something that is not available in many solutions out there. So again, as this picture shows, we're not a hub and spoke architecture where all the remote sites are coming back to one. You can operate that way if you want to, but really part of our magic is that we're peer-to-peer. So we sort of swarm that data out and get it done really fast. So there's no huge lag time when somebody in one office makes a change. You want the users in the other offices to see that data really quickly and not have a big lag time and no single point of failure. The other kind of interesting use case, especially these days where a lot of people are working from home or remotely or out in the field, is the ability to provide access to these huge storage resources that are in your data center or in the cloud. You want to provide those to the remote workers and easy access to them. And today, a lot of people access these files by using a VPN, and they mount an SMB connection over the VPN, and this is a really slow and sort of unreliable connection. The SMB protocol is super chatty and just doesn't do well with high latency or lossy connections, things like this. It really is a bad experience when you're dealing with large file sizes. We've got video post-production teams where a video editor might be working from home or on site, and trying to sync 8K video to their local Mac so they can do some quick edits is just it's not going to be a happy user transferring data over an SMB connection over a VPN. So we give the ability for users to install the Resilio agent directly on their laptops or desktops and use our proprietary protocol that's really good at synchronizing really fast over high latency connections, all encrypted and secure, of course, but give access to all those files and folders that are on the QuantaStor back in the office or in the cloud, and have them either sync all the data they want or sync it on demand just as they need it. But they always have access to it. It's super easy. This is a great use case for us, and has been really ramping up in popularity ever since the pandemic, and people sort of started working from home in a lot more numbers than they used to. And then the third use case is syncing up to cloud. The ability to leverage relatively inexpensive and unlimited capacity in the cloud is kind of a game changer in IT. And so the ability to extend your on-prem storage to the cloud or provide more global access to it, maybe using some of the features that are available with some of these big cloud providers, particularly for replacing on-prem backup or tape infrastructure. Or tape infrastructure for archive purposes, or even for production uses. The ability to leverage this sort of cheap and unlimited storage capacity is a game changer. The problem has been typically that most applications aren't written natively to take advantage of it. So you need some solution that makes it easy to consume this storage, and Resilio really makes it easy for you to synchronize files and folders that are on your desktop or on your server or on your QuantaStor and sync those to the cloud and keep them in sync bidirectionally. And importantly, with us, we're not putting any kind of proprietary file system in place. We're not locking you into using Resilio to get access to that data. Your data is your data. It's always going to be. We don't prevent you from accessing it. So you can use this to sync to the cloud, and you can use whatever tool you want or access it natively in the cloud. You're never locked in with Resilio. And then Resilio Connect is the name of our solution, and it's a really simple architecture. Really, it's software only, and it's software that you install on your infrastructure. You're going to install it on your servers, your QuantaStor device, your desktops and laptops if you want, your VMs or containers that are running in the cloud. You're going to install the software on your infrastructure, and you're going to sync the data directly between your infrastructure. We are not sticking our nose in. You're not syncing through our servers or through our cloud or through our storage or anything like that. It's a totally private solution for Resilio customers to sync securely and without using some third-party cloud. You can sync to a third-party cloud, but importantly, it's your cloud, not ours. So it's a private solution that's just focused on syncing data. And so you're installing some software on these agents, and there's also a management console because the solution is centrally managed, which gives you the ability to create these jobs for synchronizing data or transferring data among all your users or all your servers or all your locations, all from one pane of glass. And it's a super easy to use, simple, modern web GUI where you can have administrators come and configure things, but also monitor everything. So you're never left sort of wondering what the status of your synchronization is. You can always come and see dashboards with very detailed graphs and detailed information at multiple levels. So, overview level all the way down to looking at just what an individual device is doing. So, so you get a great amount of insight with the instrumentation that we provide, and you can provide alerting and things like that as well. The benefits of our solution versus other solutions out there are that we focus on speed and scalability. So we're able to, like I said, synchronize data much faster than other solutions. And that's for a few reasons. It's not just our peer-to-peer architecture that swarms data really fast. It's also our proprietary WAN acceleration protocol that helps you sync data really fast over long distance connections, high latency connections, syncing over the internet, or if you've got really remote locations, maybe you're syncing out to somebody who's out on site, collecting data, and they have kind of poor connectivity, satellite or 4G or 5G. Our protocol really helps keep us fast and maximizing the bandwidth utilization there. And of course, we have some efficiency technologies to compress data and sync less data, but do it really reliably. So data corruption is never a problem. It's just not a problem for our customers because we take a lot of care to make sure that we're not syncing any corrupt data. And of course, syncing to multiple locations provides sort of built-in fault tolerance and no single point of failure like we talked about. But the most important thing, I think, is that it gives you the flexibility to get your data, your files, exactly where you need it to be when you need it to be there. Not before, not after, like when you need it to be there, it's going to be there. And if you need real-time collaboration, there's just no better solution. And so that's Resilio Connect in a nutshell. It's a very simple solution, software only, and we're really proud of what we've done with OSNexus and what they've accomplished with the integration into the QuantaStor platform. And so, Stephen, if you'll tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Josh. Yeah, to go ahead and advance to the next slide. Do we?
Sure.
Yeah. So what we've done is we have added a whole system into QuantaStor so we can easily plug in containerized services. And one of the first services that we did was Resilio. And so the Resilio agent runs as a container within QuantaStor. And as it's showing in this diagram here, we can take folders from the highly available storage pools and present those to those Resilio agents, so that then they show up inside of Resilio Connect. So when you log into the Resilio Connect user interface, you see all of the same, you see QuantaStor showing up just as a regular agent, just like you would any other laptop or workstation or other NAS system. So what we're going to do is go through a quick demonstration of how to go create a folder inside of QuantaStor, and then access that from within Resilio Connect to set up a new job to go and synchronize that to another system. So in this case, it's showing we've got two pools with a folder called Movie 2 on either side. So one could be in Australia, one in Los Angeles, and you could have people pushing content into the folder called Movie 2 in their local QuantaStor NAS in both locations, and it's going to start synchronizing those files in real time. So there's no wait. You don't have to set up a thing to synchronize like every 5 minutes or anything like that. It's like as soon as the file is closed, it generates an event, and Resilio is moving that data immediately. So it really, when they say real-time collaboration, it really does achieve that. And this is a 2-node kind of example where you just have one NAS box in each location, but you can have, as Josh was getting at, much more complex topologies where you're replicating across the globe and keeping a lot more than just a couple of boxes in sync. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here. Did I share the right one? You guys see this screen here?
I can see it, yes.
Okay, so I've got Resilio Connect up, and what I'm going to show you is the agent list. I've got 2 agents in here right now for a couple of QuantaStor boxes, and I'm going to add a 3rd agent in here for this other QuantaStor system. So I'm going to go through and actually delete this configuration to begin with, so that you guys can see what that looks like. But yeah, so here I'm gonna go to this service config and then remove it. So I'm kind of doing this in reverse here, but then we'll show you guys how, actually, well, since I've already set it up, rather than tearing it down, why don't I just go kind of move ahead. So one of the first things you do to go set up a new agent is to just go to the Agents tab, and then over here at the top, and then say Connect New Agent. And I see that agent has already been added. So if we go back there, you'll see 81's already here. So I don't need to add that. But to add a new agent, like if you've got a new QuantaStor box that you want to go add into the Resilio Connect environment, you just go and really just hit next. This is the telling it where the management console is for the agent to go communicate with, and getting some certificate information so it can talk to your Resilio Connect environment. But what all you really need to do here is hit this download button. And this is going to download this sync.conf file. I've got that right here. And you can reuse this sync.conf file over and over again. So if you're setting up 4 or 5 agents, it's got a certificate, it's going to go and log in and identify itself as a unique agent. But you can use that token more than once. And then you just click finish. And then on the QuantaStor side, I've already got this one connected in, but we'll go through just how you add a new Resilio config. You give it a name for the agent. We generally name the agent after the QuantaStor box, and so this one is called QuantaStor box 81. So we named it QuantaStor agent 81, and this is the configuration for that. So we just call it config. But the actual agent name that we want to see show up inside of Resilio is 81. And then we browse to grab that sync file that we downloaded in that previous step. And that's it. You click OK. I've already added this agent in here, so I'm just going to hit cancel, but that's all there is to going and adding an agent config. After you've added an agent config, we need to associate that with what we call a resource group. And the resource group provides a security boundary around what you want to go share out to the Resilio Connect environment. You might have 100 different folders within your NAS system, but you don't often want to just expose everything to Resilio. There's typically some subset of assets that you want your teams to collaborate around. So you could say, hey, we're working on this new movie. Here's the project folder for that. And then you can put that or a subset of that into the Resilio environment and just allow everybody to synchronize with that content, versus giving them access to other folders that maybe you don't want shared with that particular team. So to go and add additional folders, you just right click here and select additional network shares. So I can go and take this share here and just add it, and that's going to go and make that available to the Resilio agent. If I want to remove access, I can just remove folders here and give it access to a subset. So anytime I want to change out what's being presented out to the Resilio agent, I can just change that around. But yeah, here we'll just go give it that additional folder. And yep, want to update the resource group members, and we're done. So you set up this resource group once, you join the QuantaStor box as an agent one time, and then after that, you're just adding or removing shares from the resource group. Creation of new shares is done over in this section. You can just create new shares and make adjustments for things like Macintosh users to support extended attributes and some of those other things. Yeah, here we'll just create a new share called .004, and can easily then just go and add that to the in the multi-tenancy tab as another resource for that resource group. Now, the neat thing is that everything's highly available. And what I mean by that is, let's say you had a QuantaStor configuration. This one's made up of a couple of boxes in an HA pair. So this pool and all these shares are highly available, even if one of the nodes goes offline. And what I wanted to show you is this pool here that's set up as a highly available pool. We can just move it to another box. It's currently on 81. We can just execute pool failover and push this pool of storage to another controller head unit, and there's no downtime. So the Resilio Connect agent can be in the middle of transferring files. It will just recover and continue replicating files. So you don't have to worry about whether or not the NAS and the agent are in sync with each other. Literally, the agent is running attached to that storage pool on a particular at all times. So if you have a hardware failure, like one of the servers and out of the two head nodes of the QuantaStor NAS goes offline, it doesn't matter. It's always going to be available. And I think one of the other really nice benefits of having it, as a fully integrated solution is that you can also set up policies around the shares. So you can set it up so that these get snapshotted every so many minutes. So let's say somebody deleted a whole bunch of content by mistake. You can have a snapshot schedule set up that takes a snapshot every 10 minutes. And that way you don't have to worry about being able to recover data that was accidentally deleted or otherwise. So you can set it up with an interval, like have this run every 10 minutes. And now you've got a snapshot schedule that users can use to go and recover files from. So anyways, that's kind of everything wanted to show in the demo. I guess the one other thing is after you've connected it up, how do you go about setting up new jobs to actually replicate the data? And that's done in this jobs section inside of Resilio Connect. You go in here and say configure jobs. And this is one of the coolest things about Resilio is just that you can synchronize data. You can also set up jobs that will distribute data. So if you have a NAS box like QuantaStor, you can set up distribution where anything new that goes into the NAS box gets pushed out to all the edge leaf boxes, or you can consolidate where you could say, hey, I've got all these artists that are working from home, like that use case Josh was getting at, and they're creating new content. You can have all of that content go and consolidate and synchronize back to the centralized NAS box. So a lot of really cool things that you can do with these different ways of setting up jobs. And you just go through this create new job process here. We can choose a new distribution job, and setting up a new job is just as easy as choosing an agent and what you want to select in terms of the content, which folder from the QuantaStor box, or if it's a laptop or other system, you kind of get a similar kind of view. You just pick the folder that you want to synchronize, you select it, and then save your selection, and then this is the source. We're choosing the source agent in this case. Oh, I kind of messed that up. I unselected, but I'm going to kind of give you the quick version here. But then you can have it distribute that content from that source to these destinations. And there's a bunch of different ways to set up jobs, but that's kind of it for the demo. It's so easy to just go add QuantaStor as an agent now and incorporate it right into your Resilio Connect infrastructure.
I think we did have a question regarding the demo. Someone asked, does user access role sync to the second box?
Yeah, so and maybe that's a better question for Josh, but I think that all the permission settings that are on the files are going to come across. You do want to make sure that your QuantaStor systems, if you're synchronizing between two QuantaStor boxes, that they're both joined to your Active Directory domain. So that, and you want to make sure that they're joined with the same policy, like whether you're using RFC 2307 or other type of mode. You just want them set up the same way in terms of joining your AD domain.
Yeah, so Resilio does have the ability to sync permissions. I'm not sure exactly if that's what the questioner is asking, but we've got the ability on a job-by-job basis to either synchronize the POSIX or NTFS permissions between systems. And sometimes you want to do that, sometimes you don't. So we give you the ability to configure that on a job-by-job basis. And there's other metadata that we can sync as well. But yeah, permissions is definitely something we can sync. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Someone was wondering, how does Resilio handle a VDI log off storm where profiles are syncing on sign out? Is it going to sync the files in parallel as file locks let go, or does it build a queue like DFSR?
That's a great question, and I may rely on Ilan to correct me here. But if we're syncing VDI container profiles, this is something that Resilio does very well to provide a highly available active sort of VDI environment, where you can have users logging into multiple locations and have their profiles already in sync and all their data is waiting there. And so active VDI profile container synchronization is kind of a popular use case for us. So it sounds like the questioner is asking, when you have a ton of users log off and we're ready to sync the data, how do we handle that? And the short answer is that we will try to sync those files as quickly as possible. As soon as the lock is released, we'll sync the files. But there is a lot of variability there. Resilio Connect is very configurable. We've got a bunch of sort of custom settings that you can use to tweak the solution to work exactly how you want it to work. We can have delays or lazy indexing and all kinds of things to sort of optimize how the solution operates for you. And so it's not a simple, straightforward answer. Typically, what we do in these use cases is we pair you up with one or more of our engineers to kind of tweak the job settings again to make it behave how you need it to behave.
This is Ilan. I'll just add that files are being moved in parallel. Of course, not all of them, right? So if you have 1,000 users logging off, you're not likely to be able to move 1,000 profiles in parallel, but we'll move as many as in parallel as possible.
Okay. The same person is wondering, is there a Resilio trial license for QuantaStor that I can play with?
Yeah, so Resilio provides free trials. So if you're interested in trying out Resilio, feel free to get in touch. I assume Lauren or Allison, there will be some easy way for attendees to reach out. But we do offer free trials, and that's no problem. So if you'd like to, just reach out. And really, it's not a special trial license just for QuantaStor. It's a trial license for any Resilio agent. So absolutely, I'd love to get together with you and work that out. We can schedule it.
That's a really good point. There is no QuantaStor is just a regular agent, just like any other Linux agent. So we just apply that to activate another box. So there's no special pricing or extra cost to it. It's just standard agent.
Yeah, the magic. I'm not sure, Stephen, if we got across how cool the integration is that we've done by putting the Resilio agent in a container on the QuantaStor. I know it was mentioned, but it's really cool because it gives you something that most other systems don't have, which is that high availability sort of failover between devices if there is a failure or an outage. And you don't have to spin up a separate VM on some other machine to access the data on the QuantaStor. It's like running right on the QuantaStor. It's really cool.
Yeah, this is the identifier for that container that's running. So once you start mapping storage, yep. And I think our launch window takes you directly to Connect. So you don't have to remember where is that at. Just click the button and it takes you right to Resilio. So that's
it really is a slick integration. So you could be forgiven for thinking that it would be a special sort of trial license just for QuantaStor because the integration is so tight. But really, it's in terms of the licensing, there's nothing special or different about it.
Yeah, and I think there was another. I should say also, QuantaStor OSNexus doesn't sell the licenses directly. You just go directly to Resilio to purchase licenses for your QuantaStor units.
Okay, so we have another question here. Someone says, "Hi, Resilio user here. 2 questions. 1, how do you deal with renaming of folders and files in a collaborative workspace using selective sync, given that every file would get moved to the archive folder?" That's the first question. And then the second one is, do you have a preferred folder structure for storaging and accessing project files as well as assets for an editing workflow? Thanks.
Let me take the second one first, just because I think the answer might be more concise. So the folder structure for projects for editing workflows are vast and varied. Every customer seems to be different and have a different way of organizing their data. Of course, when you're using a synchronization tool to sync out to remote workers, you do kind of want to think about how you structure your data in terms of the replication or synchronization jobs that you're configuring. Because as Stephen demonstrated, sometimes you want to sync all the data, and that's fine. That's really easy to do. But usually you don't. Usually there's some subset of data that you need to sync to specific locations or specific users. In a media and editing workflow, you might have some artists that need access to raw media and other artists really don't. You don't need to sync those huge raw assets. You just need to sync, say, proxies. And so organizing your data in a way that allows you to configure jobs to sort of control what data gets synced to users is a valuable thing to think through. Now, of course, we've worked with customers who have organization structures that are pre-existing, and there's no way you're going to reorganize all your data, right? we have had a customer do that, but most customers just it's too big of a project to reorganize everything. So we have the ability to sort of work around that and enable you to sync just the data you need to sync. But if possible, of course, it is beneficial to really think through how you organize your data, not just for synchronization, but also for data protection purposes and things like that, archive purposes. It just pays to think through your data organization period. In terms of the first question, renaming files and folders in a collaboration environment with selective sync, there's really nothing special about selective sync in this case. In selective sync, this is a feature that we have where remote workers, you don't want to sync all of the data from the QuantaStor out to your remote user, right? Because your laptop's not going to have 200 terabytes of capacity to sync. You put it in selective sync mode so it can see all of the files and folders that are on that NAS device, but it's only going to sync the files that the user actually needs or tries to open. It'll sync them on demand, and that's great. When a file or folder gets renamed, we do have to somehow synchronize that change everywhere, and that does sometimes result in the prior version of the files getting moved to the archive folder, what we call the archive folder, so you can pull previous versions out. When you're using selective sync, though, you haven't actually synced all that data, and you've only synced the things that you need, right? So there's no resync of tons of data that's necessarily going to happen. But maybe this question might be a little too nuanced, or the answer might be a little too nuanced to answer completely in a webinar, but happy to grab a session with one of our engineers and walk you through in more detail.
Awesome. Just a couple more questions here. What's the benefit of running Resilio in a multi-tenant container on OSNexus versus just running it on a server?
Yeah, that is like what we went over in the demo. That's the main advantage, is that you don't have to go and maintain a separate agent. You could set it up that way. You could just put Resilio running in a virtual machine, that the agent in a separate virtual machine, and then NFS map the shares in and all of that. But that becomes something extra that you have to go manage, and then you have to do the NFS login or SMB login to go and get those shares mapped through to that separate virtual machine. So that creates a lot of additional maintenance headaches. So being able to have it directly in the QuantaStor box, as you saw, you can just click and map through new folders, have the high availability, and not have to do a separate maintenance to have an agent running external from the box.
Thanks.
Yeah, I would just emphasize the high availability feature there. If you had an external agent running, it would just be that one agent, right? and if it went down, it goes down. The built-in high availability of running it directly in a container on the QuantaStor, I think it's just such a huge benefit.
Awesome. And then how is Resilio's or peer-to-peer faster than traditional storage replication, i.e. a hub and spoke model?
Yeah, so I touched on that a little bit, but there's a few factors that come into play. We focus on going real fast, and we can sync really fast and use up all the bandwidth that you give us. So we can absolutely sync data quickly. The features of Resilio the architecture allow us to sync data point to point just as fast as the fastest data synchronization solutions out there. So if you're just going one device to one device, we can go super fast, way faster than 10 gigabits per second, for instance. And regardless of distance, we can go really fast over any distance. The magic where we kind of leave everybody else behind by a large margin is when you are syncing or collaborating with multiple devices or multiple locations. And our peer-to-peer technology really kind of takes over and gets that data synchronized much faster. Rather than having one central server sync 10 times to 10 different remote devices, we're sort of all of the devices act as both clients and servers, and they sort of serve each other, and we're able to get that data synchronized much faster. And I think I also touched on some of the efficiency technologies we have, where we're chunking up files, and we can, if a big file changes just a little bit, we can sync just the chunks of the file that changed. We don't have to resync the whole thing. And something, I didn't mention this, but it is important when you're considering data replication solutions, is a lot of data replication solutions like DFSR. I'll just mention that because it was mentioned in a question. DFSR is kind of notorious for if you're syncing a lot of data and you have a brief outage, a network hiccup, or a node has to reboot or something, when it comes back up, it can spin for hours or sometimes days if it's a lot of data, just to try to figure out how to start the sync again. And that's really during that whole time, you're not syncing data, and that's a big problem. And sometimes it just can never figure it out because it's so much data, it gets so confused, and it just can't figure out how to start that sync again. And you're left with no choice but to delete all the data at the target and resync it all from scratch. And you might think I'm exaggerating, but I really am not. It happens all the time. Customers come to us every day with this problem. And Resilio just doesn't have this problem because of the way we chunk up data and track it. We never have to resync data that we've already synced. And when you've had an outage and you get the connection back, we can restart that sync in typically under a minute, really fast. And this is a feature of or a characteristic of data synchronization solutions that most people don't think about when they're evaluating these things. And it is really important. And you'll feel the pain if your solution isn't good at this. You'll feel the pain the first time you have an outage.
I see there's another question there around the multi-tenancy tab. Currently is disabled on the QuantaStor Community Edition. We have it in the trial edition, but we'll look at enabling that in the QuantaStor Community Edition in QuantaStor 6.0. So 6.0 is coming out at the end of the month, and we'll turn that tab on so you can start to use Resilio with QuantaStor even with the Community Edition. So yeah, look for that at the end of the month.
Okay, and one final question here. When should I use Resilio versus traditional storage replication?
And I think that really boils down to, like Josh was saying, the collaboration use cases. It's so cool that, that you can synchronize between multiple different systems simultaneously and have it also just send the changes. So in my view, it's kind of, I would use traditional replication for like that DR site where you need the instantaneous atomic copy of the source to the destination, because the way QuantaStor does that is we create a snapshot and send the differences between the snapshot. So definitely for block storage replication, like if you're using storage volumes, for iSCSI fiber channel access, you're definitely going to be using one of our replication schedules for that. But for file storage, it becomes dependent on the use case. And anytime you're really dealing with thousands or millions of files and synchronizing across sites, especially bidirectionally or multiple sites, that's where Resilio really shines. And there's a lot of benefits too to like what Josh was getting at with the WAN replication. They've got so much optimization logic in there to parallelize that and get the full use of the wide area network bandwidth. So yeah, we've got joint customers that are in the entertainment industry that use it to go across large distances, like everything from like Australia to LA and things like that. And it's just some fantastic technology. So yeah, I think really when you need the atomic snapshot, to go and push something where it's maybe snapshotting all the elements of a database from the index to the log to the core database all at once, that's where the replication DR failover type strategy is better. But anytime you've got lots of files where you're collaborating as a team across sites, and really, again, the bidirectional synchronization between systems, that's where I'd go Resilio.
Great. Well, that's all the questions. Was there any final words from Steve or Josh before we wrap up?
I don't think so. I appreciate everybody's time to learn a little bit about Resilio and about QuantaStor. And at Resilio, we're really excited about this integration. I think it's a great way to consume Resilio agents and synchronize data between QuantaStors and others.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining. I think there's a couple of questions we didn't get time to get to, but just feel free to email us at info@osnexus.com or to Resilio, and we'll get your questions answered or go into more detailed depth, because some of them, like the VDI scenarios and some of these renames, they get a bit more complex. But thanks everybody for joining. Yeah.
All right,
Thanks everyone.